Good afternoon. I hope you're ready for an exciting afternoon of killing off the Soviet Union. That's what we're going to talk about today. Yesterday, we had talked about how it was beginning to collapse, and we ended with talking about Poland and Lech Walesa, his solidarity movement, and how it was able to help Poland pull away from communism and create their own government. Today, a free and independent country. But today we're going to look at the Soviet Union itself and what it takes to actually bring it all the way down to the point that today it does not exist. So listen carefully. I got some extra points for you at the end, okay? All right, so we have a series of rulers, the first of which is Nikita Khrushchev. Khrushchev is going to take over for Stalin. We had Lenin first, and then we had Stalin. Then we had Nikita Khrushchev. Khrushchev was responsible for putting the nuclear weapons down in Cuba and aiming them at the United States. He was also responsible for removing them when confronted about it by our president John Kennedy at the time. Khrushchev ruled from 1953 to 1964. And he took a vacation out of the country in 1964. And while he was gone, the Politburo, which is the reigning rulers, the reigning group of men of the Soviet Union, voted him out of office. Can you imagine coming back and finding out you don't have a job anymore when you're the ruler of like the most powerful country on the planet? But that's what happened, and Khrushchev is voted out of office. So they go through a series of rulers after that, and we're not going to go into all those, who they were and what they did and all of that. That's for a different history class. But you had a series of rulers that ruled from 1964 to 1985. So about 21 years there where they had some real instability problems. They just couldn't keep with one person. And then in 1985, a younger man, I know his picture doesn't look like it in the book, it's on page 364, but he was younger compared to the other men in the Politburo, named Mikhail Gorbachev, took office. He was chosen in 1985, and he began, see, let me back up here just a minute. The Soviet Union had spent all of their time since 1917 to 1985, so almost 70 years, building their military. And that was all they were doing. That was their concentration as a country, was building the military stronger and stronger. Now, in order to do that, there's got to be a sacrifice somewhere, right? I mean, somebody's not going to get fed. And that's exactly what happened. The people as a whole, the general citizens of the country, were rationing food, rationing clothes. They didn't have enough to get by. Okay, so when Mikhail Gorbachev took over, he decides he's going to restructure that. He's going to back off of the military a little bit so that people have enough to eat. And it was wonderful. And the people were like, oh, wow, this is much better, So that made things a lot easier for them. And then he decides to hold multi-candidate elections. Now, this is a big deal, so let me explain this, okay? Under communism, when you got a ballot, went to the voting booth and you got a ballot, you had one choice for each office. That's it. You don't like him, then too bad, vote for him anyway, because that's your only choice. Okay, but Gorbachev started multi-candidate elections where the people got a choice. They could vote for John or Henry or Susan. Not that they had that many women in office, but they could vote for, multi-people. And that was wonderful. The people were breathing a sense of fresh air that was happening. But the problem, in fact, as a result of his multi-candidate elections, he himself is elected the president of the Soviet Union in 1990. Thank you, kind of thing, for doing what we needed you to do all along from the people, okay? So they elect him, they choose him to continue leading and continue bringing his reforms. But as a result, the Communist Party is losing control. And that's understandable because they've been oppressing these people for 70 plus years. So when they finally get a chance to breathe, then yes, they're going to get rid of their oppressors. Okay? So the country as a whole is going to divide into many different states. Eastern European countries, I'm going to show you this on a map on the next slide, are all going to declare their independence. Countries like Poland that we talked about, Romania, Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, East Germany, Hungary, all of them are going to declare their independence, and the Soviet Union will be dissolved by 1991. Okay, these are all the different states that were broken up out of the Soviet Union and became states in their own right. There's others besides these, but these are the ones from the immediate Soviet Union. Okay, with the breakdown of the Soviet Union, remember 1991, we saw a couple of other new opportunities come to Russia as well. Now that it's going to be Russia again and the other countries, people now could worship without fear or harassment. And this is huge for many of them. Now, many people in Russia today still do not worship God or worship anything, because for so many years God was not allowed, and now they don't know him. So that is a problem, and we're going to talk about that in just a sec. But the people that were there and were still Christians and worshiping God had now the freedom to evangelize and to tell their neighbors about him, where they had not had that freedom before. They may have expressed, gone next door and told their neighbor, hey, do you know about Jesus? But they risked losing their own life for fear of the authorities. And there's also now missionary outreach. Missionaries can now enter Russia. In fact, I have a friend from my old church, a young lady who has gone to Russia as a missionary. She lives in Siberia, in the cold, cold north of Russia, and she's a missionary there. She's actually studying in a Russian university, learning the language. She knows most of the language, but she's getting a degree in Russian studies or something like that in order to allow her to be in the country. And she still has to be very, very careful about mentions of God, mentions of Jesus, Christ, all of those things. But she can be there, and she's welcome. Okay, so if you've made it this far through the video, you've made it through the end of chapter 19. I'm very proud of you. I have learned that many of you are not watching my videos, and if you are, you're not watching them all the way through. So, as a means to test my theory, this is what we're going to do. Whatever the first question is after your name, okay, on the quiz, whatever that question is, I want you, no, never mind. What we're going to do is I'm going to give you the answer to a test phrase. And when you have that answer and you answer that question correctly, you will get a 100 on your quiz. Okay? So don't tell anybody else the answer. If they haven't watched the video, they don't get the answer. They have to watch the video to have the answer. Okay? Here is your fun fact for the day. You ready? Answer this question. You don't have to answer any of the others. Flamingos can only eat when their heads are upside down. Okay? Flamingos can only eat when their heads are upside down. Okay? That's your clue to getting a 100 on your quiz today. Hope you have a great day.